Hello, everybody. It's me again. Thanks for tuning in. In this video, I'm just going to be going over this topic 2.3, the regions of British colonies, document analysis and SAQ practice. I'm going to demo the first part of the assignment so you have an idea of what you're doing. And then we'll go over how to respond to the short answer question, or the SAQ, that is the formative grade of this assignment. So let's go ahead and get started on this. And let's take a look at the actual document. The sub should have given you a paper copy, but there's a link there. If you're not in class, you can print it out if need be, or just get a copy. So this is the handout. What you're going to do is take a look at each set of sources. There are 4 sets of sources, and you are going to look for evidence to use to support a claim that I've given you. All right, so let's do part 1 together. So if we're looking at the claim here, the claim is that the New England colonies and Chesapeake colonies greatly differed demographically. So the first source is a partial passenger list of the first settlers of the Plymouth colony. This was written from a record of Governor William Bradford around 1651, and in the manuscript, Bradford writes the names of the original passengers who arrived on the Mayflower in 1620. All right, so here we have an image of the primary source and then transcription on the right. So we've got some names here and essentially families, right? Francis Cook and his son John, but his wife and other children came afterwards. We've got Thomas Rogers and Joseph, his son, and his other children came afterwards. Thomas Tinker and his wife and a son. John Ridgedale and Alice, his wife. James Chilton and his wife and Mary, their daughter. They had another daughter who was married, came afterward. Edward Fuller and his wife and Samuel, their son. John Turner and 2 sons. He had a daughter, came some years after to Salem, where she is now living. And then the last entry here, Francis Eaton and Sarah, his wife, and Samuel, their son, a young child. All right. And then we can go down and we can look at source 2, which is a passenger list of the first settlers in the Jamestown colony, 1607. This should seem familiar to you. We looked at a similar list when we were going over those documents about why so many people died at Jamestown initially. That list, though, didn't have names on it. It was by occupation. All right, but if we take a look at these names and remember that the first and second ship that arrived in Jamestown was men only, we can see a big difference between these 2 groups in Plymouth and in Jamestown. And that is that, Plymouth colony, you've got families, men, women, and children. And in Jamestown, it's all unrelated men, no families. All right, so that's the big difference. So again, if we want to take a look at the claim here, the New England colonies and Chesapeake colonies greatly differed demographically. Well, what evidence do we have that they differed demographically? Well, the first New England colonists comprised men, women, and young children, like I already mentioned. Therefore, the New England colonies most likely settled as families. The first Chesapeake colonies did not have any women. And it appears that most of the Chesapeake colonists were single men, or at least based on the information we have, there's no indication in the data that they were married. All right, so that's the evidence. So you'll do that with parts 2, which we have some data and a poem. Part 3, which are excerpts from laws in Pennsylvania. And then part 4, we have a map and then a secondary source, an excerpt from a journal article. So those are the 4 parts. Should be fairly straightforward. Just again, you're looking for information to support the claim for each part. All right. Feel free to work with your table groups on this. Come to consensus because we want to, get used to the practice of using evidence to specifically support a claim. And the easiest way to start that is with me giving you a claim, and then you use the evidence that I've given you to support it. As we progress through this, you're going to come up with your own claim. You're going to identify your own evidence, and at that point, you'll be pretty good at doing this. But it's a building process rather, as we progress through the year. All right. Now, once you have completed that, the next step is to complete this short answer question. This SAQ looks like this. Mine looks a little bit different from yours. I'm in the teacher preview mode here. But the prompt is fairly straightforward. You can use your notes. You have your the notes on colonial regions, and you can use this document analysis that you just completed. Both would be relevant to the prompt. So read the question carefully, write your response in the textbook. Be sure to submit your response before you close the window. This is not something that should really take more than 15 minutes. Use complete sentences. An outline or bulleted list alone is not acceptable. You may use your notes like I already mentioned. However, you may not look up answers online or use AI tools. The whole point of this is to practice and develop your writing skills, your academic writing skills. So don't cheat yourself out of that opportunity to grow. This is not a high stakes assignment. I want to see, number one, where you're starting off here the beginning of the new school year with your writing. Again, we've got students coming from World 2, we got students coming from World Civs, we got students coming from AP World, so we're a little bit all over the place with our course background. So it helps for me to kind of have a baseline of what your writing is here at the beginning of the school year, and this will help us focus on developing our writing skills over the course of the 2 semesters. All right. So each part of the question should have a separate response, A, B, and C. Please make sure you respond in complete sentences, and you don't need a ton of information for each part. So you see each part, A, B, and C, is asking you to explain how one specific environmental or geographic feature has impacted the development of a colonial region. Just one piece of evidence. All right. So we don't need a laundry list of evidence. Pick one piece of evidence, explain it in a couple sentences, and you're good. All right. So looking at 2 to 3 sentences for each part, A, B, and C. And feel free to keep them separate. You can label them A, B, C. Just avoid putting the response to all 3 parts of the prompt into a single giant paragraph. You don't want to do that. Typically what happens to students when they do that is they often forget to respond to part of the prompt. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure we're responding to each of the 3 parts. All right, that should be fairly straightforward. If you have any questions, feel free to email me and we'll get you taken care of. In the meantime, I will see you in class on Thursday. Take care.